Thank you for joining me for another episode of The Wandering Watercolor. Let's paint. So this is the 9th page of the Chattanooga Scenery Watercolor Coloring book. And this is basically just a setting from the blue hole that is about 20 minutes southwest of Chattanooga. It's one of the more popular ones, but then I realized that there's a bunch of blue holes and then they all have specific names, but everybody just calls them the blue hole. So I do apologize that I don't know the exact name of this place, but this is what it'll look like, or close to this is what it'll look like whenever we're finished. And as always, have your paint, place to mix them, scrap piece of paper so you can test out brush strokes and colors, a rag or a paper towel just so you can dry your brush or the painting, and two jars or 2 cups of water. It's always easier if you have 2 as opposed to having just 1, because then if one gets too dirty you can always go to the next one. And then also if your brush is really dirty, you can always just kind of rinse it off in the dirty cup of water and then go to the clean one to make them last longer. So anyway, the first thing that we will work on here is in this painting, actually in the reference painting that I made, the background should have been darker. These trees should have been darker so that the tree in the front sticks out more. So we're actually going to make these darker up here. It will still use the same colors, we'll just darken them up. And yeah, let's start mixing some colors. So the first thing, we will go ahead and work on this back here. I'm going to grab some of this green. Good amount of water. Oh, and also if you have a little spray bottle, that helps with wetting your colors. Makes it a little quicker and easier to work with them. You can also just grab water directly from your cup and just use that. Okay, so I just have a bunch of green here. I'm going to grab some brown. See, that makes it immediately a darker green. Not too dark, but it's there. And then I'm going to grab some yellow while I have green on my brush. And then just mix that up here to the side. Like that. Okay, so here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to rinse off my brush. And then I'm gonna let them bleed into each other. These 2 colors, they're gonna bleed into each other a little bit as we lay them down. So I'm going in for the darker one first. And I'm kind of covering up all of this. And I'm doing more towards the bottom of the leaves. Of the clumps of leaves, I'm doing more towards the bottom. Just like that. Here. These right here, this leaf. Back here, same thing. And you can tell that I'm very loose about it. I'm not really too worried about the detail. Definitely don't stress out about the detail. Especially when you're working on something that's more chaotic, like plant, and especially if it's from a distance. So I'm going to rinse off my brush completely, and then I'm just going to grab this color. I'm just going to lay it in right on top like that. And I'm going to blend in some of those edges. And if some of the edges are harsher, that's fine too. Basically, that's what we're doing. And you see how quickly we added that background. This is a good technique whenever you're not too worried about the details. So we're just layering that all in. And back here, and back here, like that. And honestly, I'm just gonna grab this right here too. This tree. We want it to be darker because we want there to be distinction between the background and the foreground. But so we have that there. We are also going to add a little bit just straight yellow. And we're going to, sorry, my yellow is a little dirty here. I gotta clean it up a bit. There we go. So for this one, what we want to do is just get pure yellow and then just go right over and just drop some more in there like that. Just a couple little spots. It does not have to be perfect. It just gives a little bit more variability, which is always pleasant in nature. Okay, so we're good with that. Next, we want to mix up two different colors for the rocks. So if you look at the rocks, there's kind of a faded out kind of a gray that tilts towards brown with some orange highlights here and there. And the way we'll do that is we'll grab some brown and we're going to grab some of the light blue, a good amount of that, and then just mix that up. Mix that up. Let's see, this is way too dark and not brown enough. So we're going to grab more water, mix it in, and then grab some brown and then mix that in. Let's see that color. See, this is too gray. Still too gray. Let's grab some more brown. Basically just going back and forth like this. This is why I love having these, is you can kind of see the color, experiment before you start laying it down onto the paper. Now there is a very large portion of watercolor artists that paint directly from the paint to the paper and then just mix on top of the paper. And that can be a very excellent technique if you have 100% watercolor paper or 100% cotton watercolor paper. This paper right here is only 30% cotton. Now granted, it still takes the paints just fine and the paintings come out just fine. But like 100% watercolor paper, for one, it's very expensive, so I would not, like, these books would have to cost at least 4 or 5 times more than what they actually do. And that's what you really want if you're going to use directly and mix on the paper, because the moisture retains better onto cotton paper. Okay, so this color right here, this is kind of what we're going for. This is good. And the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to cover in all the black spots that you see here that are supposed to be the more intense shadows. We'll definitely be covering all of those, and then most of the rocks, but then towards the top I'm going to put some orange highlights. The orange highlights are going to be, I'm just going to rinse my brush, clear up some of this so I can use this space. The orange highlights are going to be just straight orange, just diluted a little bit with water. This is what I'm doing right here. I'm just mixing up some of it with water. So, because you see that's very strong. Okay, I'm gonna rinse my brush. I'm gonna grab some of this color. Actually, I'm gonna dry my brush a little bit so it's too much water on it. Okay. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start laying it in like this. Okay. And fill that in. And see how I'm leaving some of the portions of the rocks where it's more towards the top of the rock. I'm leaving those white. That's where those orange highlights are going to go. And so I'm actually just going to start doing that now. Just going to rinse my brush slightly, pick up some of that, and start mixing it in. Like that. Like that. Like that. It provides a very nice gradation of color. And if you get more of a highlight in some areas, less in others, that's also fine, because there's great variability in color and shading in rocks. Well, I actually used to know a gentleman that all he did was, a very successful artist, all he did was paint rocks with watercolor, and they were incredible. There is a lot of detail in rocks. I'll grab a little bit more orange here and kind of just mix it up. Add a little more water so it's not as strong. Rinse my brush and then continue on with laying down this color, going down like this, most of this, and then all of that in here, up here, like that. There, just grazing the top of those rocks and mixing in the edge of the gray-brown color, just like that. Now, this is an over-exaggeration of what the rocks actually look like, and we do that for two reasons. One, it's more aesthetically appealing when you can see the differences more clearly. But two, it will become more faded. Like, you see how it's almost dried up here? That looks much more faded. And then we're just gonna do this right here, do like that. And I'm kind of breaking that up here into like the different planes of the rock. I'm not doing just the bottom, just kind of like putting them wherever there might be some indentations, and then going in and putting that orange right on top, and then just creating that nice contrast. And also, you have to remember that orange is the opposite or complementary color of blue. There's going to be a lot of blue that we lay down here. It'll help. You don't want to put too much orange because then it'll clash, but if you put some, it'll help bring out the blue once we put it in. I'm going to put some of this here. Okay. Do that. Rinse my brush. Grab some of this. Outline some of that, and then maybe some streaks over here to show that the rock has indentations. And then down here. And rinse off our brush. Grab the orange and just lay it down. Now this one, it's okay if you go a little stronger with the orange because it's so close to the viewer. It would actually appear a little stronger, and it'll also help separate it from the background a little bit. Okay. Oh, that looks good. Now, where we mixed this color for the rocks, we can go ahead and pick up some of the brown and mix that in. Remember, any palette works. You don't have to use my palette. Whatever palette you have, as long as you have colors that are similar to these, you'll still get a similar look. And it does not have to be identical. As long as it looks coherent, and you can distinguish the lights from the darks with the different gradation of colors and the shapes, it's totally fine. Okay. So this one is obviously, this mixture is a bit darker. I actually want to make it quite a bit darker. I'm gonna put some more of both of those. The excuse me. The brown and the dark blue, and what we're gonna do is grab some of the purple, just mix them all up. Mix all those, and let's see how that looks. That's good, but maybe a little more brown. Okay, that's good. So now we can go ahead and lay that in all the spots that are really dark here, to really bring out those shadows. And try to vary the width of your line a little bit. Remember, you can go really with your brush strokes. You can go really thin, or if you press down, it goes wider. So feel free to experiment a little bit on the side before going into the actual painting if you need to, or you can just go for it. Okay, laying them in like that. Maybe a little bit of a little dot here and there. Hopefully I'm not blocking too much of the camera. I really try to be cognizant of that, just because it's kind of an awkward camera angle. Okay, put all of that in here. Okay, and that. Do all that. And just go slowly. If you mess up, because rocks or rock formations like these are such chaotic structures, even if you mess up a little bit, it's not really going to show through, so don't worry about it. What you really want to worry more about is making sure that you have a variety of brush strokes. You don't want to just do the same thing over and over, because then it'll look a little mechanic. And we want this to be more organic. And just continue to fill in these little spots here. Okay, like that. Going in like this. Okay. I'm just going to step back just for a moment just to double check. Okay, I think that looks great. That looks great so far. I'm very happy with that. A little bit down here. Keep in mind, so these are going to dry lighter, and we will go back in and add another layer of the shadow just to really pull up that contrast. Okay, I'm gonna do a couple lines here, like that, just like kind of like where there's already lines. I'm just gonna fill that in a little bit. Okay, there's that. Okay. All that here. Okay, like that. Okay, and then down here. And then I'll do a little bit following these streaks on the rocks, just kind of like that, a little bit, not too much. Definitely some variation in the marks themselves, just so that it looks more natural. There we go. Okay, so all of that looks good. I'll rinse off my brush. Now for this part, for this tree up here, we want to use stronger colors, brighter colors, and stronger, lighter, brighter colors so that it really pops. So I'll give you an example. Like, so this is what the reference image looks like. And keep in mind, we still have colors to build up, but the background right here, it already looks better on ours just because it doesn't look as blended with with what the colors on the front will be. So I'm just gonna switch this out real quick. I just need more space to mix. I'm going to grab some green directly from here, and I'm going to go directly onto the paper because we do want the really strong saturated pigment directly from the paint. So we're not going to be diluting it with any water. This really helps the colors really pop, so, and separate it from the background. Okay, so we're going to do all of that. Put that in here. Okay, I'm just gonna go about right there. I'm gonna rinse my brush completely and then grab a bunch of yellow and just go ahead and lay that in. So this yellow will both separate from the background as well as help us blend in the transition from the color that we just put down. So we're gonna do this and this, just like that. And you can let some of the yellow at the tips of the leaves, that's fine. This looks perfect just the way it is. Now we want to fill in the darker gaps here in the background where it's just kind of like the background of the forest between the trunks as opposed to where all the leaves are. You want to get some brown and some purple, kind of mix it together. And also a little bit of green, not too much, but just to dull it down a notch. So this is a good color. We can go ahead and start laying that in. Like over here, for example. It's a very similar color to the shadows that we used for the rocks, but it's just ever so slightly different. I'm going to try to leave some space for the tree trunks that are kind of like poking through, because we will go back in and put the brown color for the tree trunks. All of this right here is just basically the background, or where light kind of fades, so you can't see it as clearly. So I'm just gonna do that. All of this. Even though the shadows are different, they're very close together, which keeps the uniformity present. Like, the shadows themselves are staying more towards the brown as opposed to going more cooler, like a grayish brown. That way it all kind of looks like it's supposed to go together. Be careful around this edge right here, because you don't want the purple to bleed into the yellow. And same with going around the leaves of the tree in the foreground. You just want to be kind of careful around those edges. I'm going to put in all this, like that. Okay, there we go. All in here and here. Okay, I rinse my brush. See, that looks better already. So if we pull up the reference, with the reference I had used too much green in the color that separates the background here, which doesn't work as well. Like, this is much more coherent, easier to notice the differences. Okay. Now we can focus on painting the water. So if you look at the reference, it kind of transitions out, and then there's some sand at the bottom here with some rocks, and obviously a lot of reflections on the water. The way we're going to do it is we're going to lay in the color for the water and kind of like pull it out with water to kind of stretch and fade the color. On the bottom here, we do want some of the sand to show through along with some of these rocks. So the first thing we should do is mix up some of that sand color that we're going to use, which is going to be this brown, some yellow, and water, and then definitely more yellow. That's good. That's a good color. And I'm just going to rinse my brush. I'm going to grab some of the light blue. Get a little bit of water here. I want this to be a little thick. Like, you still want water in it to move around easily, but we want the color to be more concentrated. And the way we'll do it is, the closer it is to the edge of the rocks in the back, you want it to be darker and then kind of fade it out. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll do kind of like the outline here, just like that, and then do some streaks kind of like that here and there. You do want a little bit of highlights in the water. You go ahead and place that. Like that. And now I'm just going to put water on my brush. I didn't clear out all of the pigment in it. I'm just going to go like this. Kind of fade it out. So it's much more transparent. And I'm pulling the color out with the water in the brush. Now I'm going to rinse my brush completely. So it's just water. Just kind of fade it out. And then here, in this area, I'm just going to grab this color and go ahead and lay it in and kind of fade it into the wet part of this color that we were just laying down. And kind of pull it up. So just like that, and then grab some more water, just straight water, and then fade it in. Okay, so you can kind of see that transition. This is a really good transition here. I'm going to rinse my brush. And then we are going to layer in some more blues to show the overlapping, but we have to let it dry first. Oh, I accidentally dropped here, so I'm going to use my rag. There we go. So while this is drying, I'm just going to grab some of the brown here. Gonna mix up a little bit here. For the tree trunks, it's a little bit too strong, so I'm gonna dilute it with water. Let's see. Okay, that's good. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill this in. There we go. And also kind of go back in to where all those little tree trunks are. Okay. And also the ones that are going into like the leaves that kind of poke through. Go ahead and outline those as well. And, okay, so this is looking good. So we have all the base layers down pretty well. If you look at the reference, you can tell that obviously a lot of it is much lighter, but when we add in more details and outlines, it'll look much better. Okay, I'm gonna rinse my brush, and then I'm gonna use this spot right here, mix some of the dark green that we will use to create texture in the crowns of the trees. Use that. So this is a darker green, so we can use that in the background. This darker green, basically the way that we'll make those textures in the background is we want them to be a little bulkier and less spread out. And then the one that's more towards the foreground, we're going to have a little more scattered, just because it's closer to us, we can see more of the detail. So the way that I'll do this for the background is I'm just going to go in, kind of almost like a fluffy sort of odd shape, following the contour of the trees, but more towards the bottom. And what I mean is more towards the bottom of the crowns, and then you want to add that in like that, so it's a little bit of a jagged edge, kind of forming the crowns of the trees a little bit like that. And the way you could do that is if you just kind of like dab it a little bit like that, and then you can make those shapes, you can make those textures. Like that. Same here. I'm gonna fill that in between. Okay. Okay, all that. And this as well. Although this one is closer, so I'm just going to do a little bit of kind of like separation up here with the texture. Okay, so that's good. I'm going to rinse my brush. And now, for the tree up front, I'm going to get some green, a little bit of brown, a little bit of yellow, and some water. Okay, and then same thing, but I'm just gonna add kind of like a little more here and there, kind of just spacing it out like that. Okay, that's good. Okay, chugging right along. I'm gonna grab some of the brown here and mix it in with this color that we had used previously for the rocks. I'm gonna grab some purple. And then some blue. More brown. More blue. Okay, that's getting closer to what we need. So I'm trying to mix that rock color again, but this time just making it a little darker. Yeah, probably get a little more brown. Okay, that's good. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do kind of like a faded outline, not too strong, just some parts of the rocks. Kind of like that. Like that. And it doesn't have to be everywhere, just here and there, just a little bit, just to show that there is shading and a variety of color in the rocks. Like right here is perfect. Like that. And the ones that are closer, you could just do a couple of dots here and there just to show the texture of the surface of the rocks. Like here, just gonna go like that. Okay, that looks good. I'll rinse my brush. And go back to the light blue color. I'm gonna grab a little more, just kind of mix it in. We want it to be really strong this time. So we're using less water and more pigment. And then towards the back, I'm definitely gonna do another outline towards the edge of the rock. Right over, really punch up that color. And then just do some streaks here and there of the same color, but it's same intensity. I'm not diluting it. It's the same intensity of the color, just some streaks here and there. Like that. Maybe a little bit over here, kind of like going back and forth just to show that there's, you know, the edge, you know, how water kind of goes back and forth towards the edge of the, where it meets another object. Okay, so that's good. We are almost done. The only other thing that we need to do is this that we used for the sand, to mix the sand. I'm just going to grab a little bit of brown, a little bit of the color that was right next to it, like that. Okay, that's good. So I'm just going to do just some gentle outlines for some of the rocks that are down here. Kind of like that, like that. Just a little bit here and there, just to show that there's a suggestion of something underneath the water. It does not have to be perfect, but you can also do just some dots, you know, just because there's pebbles and sand underneath there. And doing this, it just adds another layer, so you know that there's things down there. I'm gonna rinse my brush. I'm just gonna step back for a moment, just take a look at it. Okay, yeah, that looks excellent. So if I reference, so I would say that this actually looks better than the initial reference. And part of that is because we did do a better job of differentiating from the foreground to the background. Even though these trees could still have been a little darker, it still looks much better. Overall it reads much better. And then I was gonna say maybe adding a little more contrast in the shadows over here. But it's not really necessary. It looks fine. Yeah, the contrast in the reference piece is maybe a little stronger, but I honestly think that looks fine. Yeah. So that's pretty much it for that one. That was what, 45 minutes, just about. And that actually came out really well. I really like how that looks, especially with the layering of the water. If you have any questions about any of the techniques that I used, or if I didn't explain anything well enough, just send me a message, leave a comment. I try to respond right away. And I will see you at the next tutorial. Thank you.